Here are the 4 pages that we're going to be sewing together for your book. First, place this page on the table in front of you, oriented in this direction, so that the holes are facing you. Then, place one of the folded pieces of paper, small ones, on top of that. Then, place the next small piece of folded paper atop that, all the time with the holes facing towards you. Lastly, place the large piece of paper on top with the stub part folded inward, holes facing towards you. We're doing this just to get an idea of the sequence in which we'll be sewing these 4 pieces of paper together. At every stage of this video, it would probably be a very good idea to pause and do what you need to do, and then restart it and pause again and do what you need to do at the various stages. We'll need our needle and thread, waxed linen thread, and about 36 inches of the thread will be more than enough for what we need to do here in sewing this together. Leave about 4 inches hanging out one end. That'll be more than enough. We'll start with this page only, oriented in this direction, with the holes facing you. You'll notice that we have the holes numbered. Number 1 at the bottom, going all the way to 6 at the top. Start by poking the needle through the hole number 1 at the bottom, from the outside towards what will be the inside of the book. Make sure you leave a good 3 inches hanging out the back. Now we're on the inside of the binding, and we're going to go upward, and we're going to poke the needle out to the outside of the binding through the second hole up. Now we're back on the outside of the binding, and you're going to poke the needle from the outside to the inside through hole number 3. As you're doing your sewing, make sure that you keep the thread tight. Keep weaving your way in and out in the same pattern, and you'll finally wind up coming out of the top hole, number 6, to the outside of the binding. Once again, make sure the thread is nice and tight, but don't pull it so hard as to rip the holes. This is what it will look like at this point on the inside of the binding. Now, take the small folded stub and place it atop what we've just sewn. And take your needle and poke it through the top hole, number 6, of this small page. Pull it through, and this will help to begin attach that stub to the one we just sewed. Once you've pulled your needle and thread through to the inside of the binding, this is how it will look. Now, sew in and out, repeating the same pattern as we did on the first page, only this time we're going down, and we'll be coming out the bottom hole, hole number 1. This is how it will look on the inside of your binding now. Make sure at this point all the sewing is nice and snug, nothing loose. Once you have come out of that hole, your needle and thread will be to the far right outside of the tail that's sticking out of the first piece of paper. You're now going to tie that into a knot. Then tie it again so that you'll have a double knot, nice and secure. Your first and second pieces of paper are now sewn together. If you would like to trim that tail off at this point, you can, but some people wish to wait until they've finished the entire sewing to do this. Now, place the next small folded piece of paper, stubs, atop the pile that we already have. Now we'll begin sewing this, attaching it to the preceding stack by poking the needle through the number 1 hole from the outside to the inside. As before, We'll continue our same pattern of sewing in and out, upward through the holes. When we finish this, the needle will be coming out from the inside to the outside of this particular stub, hole number 6 at the top. This is what it will look if viewed from the inside. Now it's time for what we call a kettle stitch. That is, this will connect this folded piece of paper to the previous two. Take the needle and slide it through the stitch that connected the previous two pieces of paper. Pull it upward as indicated in the picture you're seeing now. Pull it tight. This is how it will look before you tighten it. Now, let's take our last piece of folded paper, the fold going inward towards the book, oriented in the direction that's shown, and we'll be sewing this, the previous 3 folded pieces of paper. We'll begin by poking the needle and thread from the outside of hole number 6 to the inside of the binding. When we open it up, this is what it looks like from the inside. Then we'll poke our needle and thread down into the next hole from the inside out. Here is a close-up of what it looks like. We continue our same sewing pattern from before, in and out, until the needle and thread are poking out the bottom hole. This is what it looks like from the inside of the binding. Here's a slightly different view. Now it's time for another kettle stitch. Simply slide the needle and thread through where the last stitch had held together the last 2 pieces of paper. Pull it through nice and tight. This is what it will look like. Now, tie a double knot and all 4 pieces of paper will be bound together. You can now trim all of the excess thread that you want. You've now completed the sewing of the inside of the book.